this country, and the people have no idea in the world what's going on. All goes back to the Phoenician Canaanite system and ancient Phoenicia, ancient Babylonian Sumeria, and this is why the work of Zechariah Sitchin is so important. This is where the kings of England get their concept of the divine right of kings. What are you talking about, divine right? All of this is part of a subject which I call ancient mysticism. That once you begin to see how words and terms and symbols are used, and the powers that be in this world have set up a world of symbols and emblems and terms and catchphrases. Once you understand how this system works, for the first time, the world opens up to you. All of it is right in front of you. But if you don't understand what the words are, what the words mean, you're never going to figure out how this stuff works. There's a very sinister, frightening, interesting symbolism that has been imposed upon this country, and the people have no idea in the world what's going on. And I will guarantee you, no matter how educated you might think you are, I will guarantee you, you have no idea in the world how the world actually works. You need to understand that when even on your check, when you're writing a check, the place where you put your name on a check, look at that line, what you're signing on, and get a magnifying glass, and you will find that's not a solid line to sign your name on. That is written. It's a typewritten sentence that's been honed down to microscopic size. Get a magnifying glass and read on a check what is said where you sign your name. I have discovered many years ago that words and magical systems dominate the world that we live in. There is, in point of fact, a magical matrix at work. I've always been interested in the occult. Occult is simply a word meaning hidden. And so much of our powers in this world and the way things work are hidden. And the more one looks at this subject of how the world actually works, you begin to see that there's a magical system. And I'm telling you, there really is a magical system dominating the world of the Western civilization. And for 1,000 years before the Roman Empire existed in Northern Europe, basically Western Europe, there was a magical priesthood called the Druids. And the Druids still even exist to this day. And it was a very legitimate political, social, educational, religious institution dominating Europe for thousands of years. And they were referred to as the Druids. They were actually from the Phoenician Canaanite system in the Middle East. The Phoenician Canaanites formed the basis for the ancient Druidic system, and that's even older. But in the ancient Druidic system, there were many powerful symbols and emblems. One of the most interesting symbols in Druidism was a magic wand, like Merlin the magician with his magic wand. Magic wands were always made out of the wood of a holly tree. It was made out of hollywood. And we're still seeing the magic of the wood of the holly tree. Hollywood, motion pictures, television. And once you begin to see the symbols and realize that the symbols for the national coats of arms for countries, the flags, the seals, the presidential seals, the emblems for the logos and emblems on corporations, especially the corporate emblems for motion pictures and television companies like Columbia Broadcasting System. CBS has the eye. The Colombian system goes back to the Colombian faction of the Illuminati back in the early 1700s, not the late 1700s. And you begin to see why space shuttle is called Columbia. You have Columbia University, Columbia Pictures, Columbia Broadcasting. Columbia is a very interesting word, and it's connected to the Jesuits. Once you begin to see how words and terms and symbols are used, and of course symbols are extraordinarily important in world affairs, all of a sudden it opens up, as I said, a whole new perspective on how stuff is happening. Let me give you an example of how words, my friend William Henry says you put an S in front of the word word and it becomes swords. The words are swords. They are cutting things. Humans are word responsive creatures. We respond to people's words. When you begin to see how words are used, let me give you an example of the magic. Why do you have to go to court? You go to court because you play basketball on a court. You play tennis on a court. How do you play tennis on a court? You play with a racket. Why? Because the people that develop it know it's a racket. That's where we get the term. Consequently, you need to understand that the words which are used by the systems under which we live are not by chance. In a court, the whole idea in a court is to put the ball back in the other guy's court. So this team of attorneys, they stand up and throw the ball back at the other team. Now the ball's in their court. They have to get up and throw the ball back into that court. The judge wears a black robe. Why does a judge wear a black robe? Well, the same reason Catholic priests wear black robes. Rabbis wear black robes. You wear a black robe. For many years, young people graduating from university and college wear a black robe. What's this stuff with a black robe? Let me give you an example of how this stuff works, and it's a very quick example. There are two basic kinds of law under the law of magic. There are two kinds of laws that govern the earth. One is called the law of the land, L-A-N-D. And we've heard that term, law of the land. Why do you use that term, the law of the land? Because that's where people live, is on land. But there's an opposing law which is far more important, far, far more powerful. It is called the law of water. It was developed under the old Druidic system in Europe, which can trace its history back through the Roman Empire, through the Vatican, and ultimately back to the Phoenician Canaanites in the Middle East. Of what we today call Phoenicia, Cana, was called back what we call today Israel and Lebanon. Syria, that was called Phoenicia, Cana. And the Phoenician Canaanites, so the very word Cana, which we've all heard in relation to the Bible, Cana is a Phoenician word meaning bankers, merchant bankers. Well, the Phoenician Canaanites set up a system of merchant banking and had their Phoenician Canaanite symbols and words connected to their societies, their banking societies. We're talking about in the Middle East. And then through the Greece and ultimately through Rome and then into Britannia and ultimately into this country comes an ancient Druidic Phoenician Canaanite magical system of finance, education, and all of it is right in front of you. But if you don't understand what the words are and what the words mean, you're never going to figure out how this stuff works. We all have a cursory understanding of what we think is going on. That's not it. You need to understand that when even on your check, when you're writing a check, the place where you put your name on a check, look at that line, what you're signing on, and get a magnifying glass, and you will find that's not a solid line to sign your name on. That is written. It's a typed written sentence. You will find that's not a solid line to sign your name on. That is written. It's a typed written sentence.
This man's name is Jeffrey Bezos. Jeffrey is widely known for his success in his creation of a $2 trillion company from just a measly $250,000 investment made by his parents. But Jeffrey has a secret. What is not widely known about Jeffrey is that his grandfather is Lawrence P. Guise. Lawrence P. Guise helped form the Pentagon's super-secret Advanced Research Project, ARPA, in 1958. In later years, that agency was renamed to DARPA. DARPA is responsible for the development of the internet and spurred breakthroughs in high-speed networking, voice recognition, and internet searches. And then coincidentally, what one can only perceive as a passing of the torch ritual, 1 year before Lawrence P. Guy's unalived in 1995, Bezos founded Amazon in the garage of his Bellevue, Washington home. They know that we root for the underdog, so they prey on our weakness.
So the very first time when I was working with this producer, we were working on my first album to get me shopped to get a major deal. And we were taking a break from recording this album, and he took me around the studio. And this is someone who's been in the industry, like he's worked with big names. And so he was like, hey, so you know that if you were to sell your soul to the devil, you can have instant fame tomorrow. And
Wait,
when
who said that?
I really don't want to say his name.
Oh, but it was
A producer I was working with, yes. A music
Wow.
producer I was working with.
He actually said those words.
He actually said those words. And he took me away from like my team. So he had me by myself. So it was like a whole lot happened in that moment. Like discernment happened in that moment for me that I never really experienced before. It was almost like he made a mistake in his career and he was using me to try to get to where he really wanted to be. But he didn't want to sell his soul. So he's like, but if you sell your soul, we can go high. And it was like, in that moment, I received all this knowledge and a huge, just, what I can explain was like something fell on me. And I fell to the ground where I could not stand, and I started weeping and crying out to the Lord, saying, forgive me, because I wasn't living right. And so when he said that, it was almost like, what have I done? How deep am I in this disobedience place? So I fell on the floor and I started, just crying out and saying, Lord, forgive me. I don't want to do anything without you. Like, the true nature of who I am. Like, I wanted him to forgive me. And after that whole thing, I look up and the man was sitting on the, it's like he fell, I guess, because he was sitting weird and his head was down as I was praying and crying out to God in front of this man. I did not care because the conviction behind his words really hit me.
That was Satanism. It's working. We made a pact. We came out so well. No, it's been really dealing with, you're told certain things as you grow up, and I'm a big believer, and you have to try things on to yourself and really figure out who you are and what works for you.
Get a magnifying glass and read on a check what is said where you sign your name. That's why the attorneys tell you better check the small print. The small print is ultra small. Where you sign your name on a check is saying something. Go back and read it. You need to understand that according to the old Phoenician Canaanite system, which we call today our judicial, educational and judicial system, there is no law in this country or in the Western world, no law, federal, state, county, city, commercial, it makes no difference. There is no law on the books anywhere in this country that applies to you as an individual creature. There is no law. Because the people who designed the system thousands of years ago realized that there's two of you. There's the one that your mother gave birth to, that God created, so to speak. And even your mother didn't know what you were doing. Even your father and your mother have no idea what you're thinking or what you will do. You don't even know. So consequently, they have no control over you, your flesh and blood self. But somebody has to control this show. And so consequently, the ancient Phoenician Canaanites developed a system by which they would assign to every person a second you. And this is the way it works in America. There is two of you. Just as there are two states in this country, of every state is two states. You have the state of Nevada and Nevada State. You have Cal State, California State, and State of California. Not the same thing at all. California State, according to the law, is one thing. State of California is totally different. Has nothing to do with each other at all. It's the difference between being a lawyer and an attorney. Has nothing to do with them at all. It's totally separate words, means totally separate things. Consequently, when you understand how words and terms are used and symbols are used, then we go back to the idea of the court. And as I said, there is no law in this country on any books that applies to you. None. All law in the Western civilization applies only to cooperations, co-ops. All law applies only to corporations, period. Across the board. End of sentence. Consequently, there is no law that applies to you personally, so consequently, the system has made each one of you a corporation. And how now do you distinguish which one, when someone's addressing you, that they're addressing you as the one that your mother gave birth to, or the corporate you? Very simple. According to British law, when you sign your name, upper and lower case, that is applying to your body. Your flesh and blood self is spelled, according to British and American law, upper and lower case, capital letter, lower case. That's you, your personal self. There is no law that can be applied to an upper and lower case name, period. No law at all can be applied to an upper and lower case name because there is no law over you. Therefore, every piece of important bills, insurance, driver's license, identification, taxes, I don't care what it is. If it's a piece of business, period, in any kind of way, shape, or form, your name must, by law, international maritime admiralty banking law, your name must appear in all capital letters. You will never get a bill or anything that has your name upper and lowercase because there is no law that applies to an upper and lowercase name, period. So if Sears is going to send you a bill, if you go into Baskin Robbins or Sears and you order a pair of shoes, what are you going to do? They're going to give you a ticket, and you're going to put it on your bill, and then they're expecting you to pay the bill. And consequently, they're going to charge you. Well, that's the same thing. You go into a courtroom. They're going to read out the charges. And the cop gave you the ticket, and you have been charged with speeding or whatever. And therefore, you have to pay the charge. Well, once you understand that in America, according to our laws in America, you cannot pay a bill. Did you know that? According to international banking law, Americans cannot pay a bill. So when you say, well, I got to pay this, I'll pay that bill, well, that's a term that we use. But in point of fact, lawfully, you cannot pay a bill. You can discharge a debt. You cannot pay a bill. So consequently, you need to understand, what do you mean discharge a debt? Now it gets back to the court again. Now it gets back to the symbols and emblems of why the judge wears a black robe. It has to do with the planet Saturn. Saturn is the god that inhibits. He's the inhibitor and the law god, the god of law who inhibits, who holds back. He holds back everything and teaches you a lesson the hard way. Saturn. And women were told in the ancient world to listen to their god Saturn, who incidentally was called Lord of the Rings. Okay? And consequently, they're still making movies in Hollywood on Lord of the Rings, the planet Saturn. Women were told to listen to their god, the Lord of the Rings, so they were wearing an ear ring. Men were to get married before Saturn, their god, so they would wear a wedding ring. Consequently, the king would be crowned before Saturn. Saturn would be the round crown of the corona, the ring. Saturn, the god who is the inhibitor, the god of occult law, the mystical god Saturn, Lord of the Rings, who is in charge of and controls all occult law in the universe. This is why today we know that Saturn was referred to as hell E-L. L is a name that was given to the planet Saturn. And therefore, if you are worshiping Saturn, you represent the law. You are referred to in church today as an elder. How did you get to be an elder? You got to be an elder because you were one of the elites. How did you get to be an elite? You got elected because through elections, all of our system is based on occult, mystical words and terms going back to the planet Saturn, going back to the Phoenician Canaanite system of banking. Incidentally, where do you find a bank? We go to banks all the time. Where do you find a bank? Banks are on both sides of a river. They're called river banks. What does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the currency. Your money is referred to as the currency. This is why when you go to court, you have the current, electricity, because it's the juice. And if you don't have the juice, you don't have it. So if you don't have the juice, you can't capitalize. And the capital is a Latin word, meaning money. There's a very sinister, frightening, interesting symbolism that has been imposed upon this country, and the people have no idea in the world what's going on. All goes back to the Phoenician Canaanite system and ancient Phoenicia, ancient Babylonian Sumeria, and this is why the work of Zechariah Sitchin is so important. This is where the kings of England get their concept of the divine right of kings. What are you talking about, divine right? All of this is part of a subject which I call ancient mysticism that dominates the Western civilization. After the change of the century, coming into 1900s, decided they wanted to expand. They got so much money and they're doing so well. They thought maybe we could expand the business, move the corporation out a little bit. Let's expand business. Let's go to Germany or Europe and open up a big corporation there and take in their corporation, their government. We'll take them over. And the Germans said, "Hey, Jack, it's like a mafia. What are you coming over here? You're gonna buy me? I'll buy you. You don't buy me." Like the Godfather movie.
And the Germans said, "Hey, Jack, it's like a mafia. What are you coming over here? You're gonna buy me? I'll buy you. You don't buy me." Like the Godfather movie.
Maybe a lot of people would say, "Hey, man, this is what it is. I reached my goal, my dream, my life is me." I thank God. It's got to be more than this. I mean, this can't be what it's all cracked up to be. I mean, I've done it. I'm 27, and what else is there for me?
I'd wake up and I think, why did I wake up this morning? This is coming from a man who had everything: money, fame, glory, titles, a wife, a family, kids, everything. But I felt as if I had nothing. I felt there was an empty, gaping hole that was just filled with gloom and doom, and it just was one bad thing happened to me after another. And it wasn't until after the Klitschko fight, a very massive high, then I had to have a even worse low, lowest low that anything could ever have.
You know, I've learned a lot from my wife over the years. She's so about the power of intention, and believing things that are really going to happen. And she always makes a little altar for me at the game because she just wills it so much.
Always makes a little altar for me at the game because she just wills it so much.
And so she put together a little altar for me that I could bring with pictures of my kids, and I have these little special stones and healing stones and protection stones, and she has me wear a necklace and take these drops she makes, and I say all these mantras. And I stopped questioning her a long time ago. I did. I just shut up and listened. And at first I was like, this is kind of crazy. And then about 4 years ago, we were playing the Seahawks, and she said, "You better listen to me. This is your year, but this is all the things you're going to have to do to win." And I did all those things, and by God, it worked. It was pretty good. And then in 2015, it was about early January, and she said, "You know how much I love you?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "I just want to let you know this is not going to be your year." And of course, we lost. I said, "What does 16 look like?" And she said, 16 is going to be your year. So it was early January this year, and I said, "Babe, I asking, do we have a chance?" And she said, "Yeah, but you're going to have to do a lot of work, and you're really going to have to listen to me." So, man, I listened to her. And
right after the game, she said, see, I did a lot of work. You do your work, I do mine. She said, you're lucky you married a witch.
She said, you're lucky you married a witch. I'm just a good witch.
Every time I'm about to release an album, for some strange reason, man, you know what I'm saying? I always lose somebody close to me. It was my pops, it was James, it was my sister, like, I always lose somebody close to me, so, you know, I feel like, you know, some crazy, like, jinx or some, maybe I notice every time I put out an album, it's like I lose somebody. Like I lost my pops. With my first album, I lost Yams with my second album.
So for all the people out there who don't believe in chemtrails or weather modification, I want you to head to geoengineeringmonitor.org and let me know what you think about all this. So this website has a map that you can scroll through of the entire world, showing all of the projects that they have going on and all of the areas that they are spraying chemicals into your air in order to modify the weather. And if you look along the side here, that entails all different kinds of things: greenhouse gas removal, solar radiation management, weather modification. So if you see here, we've got carbon capture, direct air capture, ocean fertilization, enhanced weather, artificial upwelling. So if we go down, we got solar radiation management, cloud thinning, microbubbles and sea foams, stratospheric aerosol injection. We've got canceled, completed, ongoing. Lets you know all the projects that are going on with that right now. Weather modification, right there. We've got increased precipitation, reduced precipitation, so them just controlling rainfalls however they please. Messing with Mother Nature, that's always a good idea. And then other, my personal favorite. Algae projects, major research project, whatever that is, and other. Not disclosing what it could possibly be. But there you go. Go check it out.
Okay, so they're in 0G and watch the ball just fall out of his hand.
Full hurricane, and that's pretty neat to be able to see it. You can see the eye and how it's forming. But one of the things that's interesting about up here, when you see that whole hurricane, you're pretty amazed and you start taking pictures. When you see that whole hurricane, you're pretty amazed and you start taking pictures and all of that of it. But then you forget that there are people in danger down on Earth with the hurricanes and all that. So sometimes it's easy to lose perspective up here.
You're going to want to hear this. Don't you think it's odd that Alaska is part of the United States of America? The real reason is far darker and more complex than you have been led to believe. Deep within Alaska, there is a black pyramid, an ancient structure that is buried beneath the ground, emitting powerful energy. In 1992, an earthquake in China revealed this pyramid near Mount McKinley. This discovery was picked up by spy satellites, revealing its location to external nations. Indigenous Alaskan tribes also speak of a powerful sacred structure which fits the exact same description as the structure captured on the satellite. But it gets even crazier. According to ancient scripts, the Black Pyramid is part of a global network of ancient energy generators. These pyramids were scattered around the world by a civilization that used to walk with the gods. The purpose was to harness and distribute energy across the world. The same network includes the Great Pyramid of Giza. Since the founding of the United States, extra effort was placed into colonizing Alaska with the aim to reverse engineer the pyramid's technology for modern use.
You heard about the 2045 Initiative, a non-profit organization with hopes of extending the human lifespan using artificial intelligence. Started by Russian billionaire Dmitry Iskov. He claims he can make all humans immortal.
They have 4 major milestones in their plan. Number 1 was to create a remote control avatar. 2 was to ensure that the human brain could be transferred into that avatar at the time of a person's. Number 3 was to ensure that consciousness and personality could be uploaded to the avatar at the time of a person. Number 4 gets rid of the physical body. They hope the human race can live on in holographic form. This is getting sci-fi. If you've seen Black Mirror, you've seen them experiment with the idea of holographic consciousness. The 2045 initiative calls this idea cybernetic immortality. Billionaires like Jeff Bezos have funded similar ideas. Artificial humanoid avatars, brain-computer interfaces. What do you guys think about immortal life? Do you think that could help us get to the 5?
Well, let's see how long it takes you to find me. Thank you very much. Let's go.
被追溯到说，出现每一张脸都可以对应说他的身份证，以及他所经过，比方说在过去1周，我们回溯他的行进路程，我们也做了像人和车的匹配，那同时在人上匹配还包括亲属关系匹配，然后是你经常接触人员之间匹配，就是当摄像机布到就或者我们传感器布到一定密度的时候，其实我们会经常知道你跟谁天天在一起。
Well, here we are then. I've just got out of the car, close to the city centre, and for the purposes of this exercise, the plan is for me to start walking in the direction of the bus station. My image has already been flagged to the authorities as a suspect, and in theory, it should only be a matter of time. Uh-oh. Right behind me, you can see just over my left shoulder there. Hello, guys. I've been expecting you. Maybe these guys aren't in on the joke.
All right, this is a very cool story. The Department of Defense Agency is developing new technology that is inspired by lizards.
Yes, indeed. Digital producer Alexander Bahu is here to explain what it is and how to protect our troops.
You know what? Move over, Spider-Man. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, also known as DARPA, has created devices that will have humans climbing like geckos. DARPA launched the Z-Man program to develop a better way for warfighters to scale buildings and other obstacles. Researchers on the project were concerned ropes and ladders were dangerous and impractical while carrying heavy loads. That's why DARPA developed handheld biologically inspired climbing aids. They use micro and nano fabrication technologies to produce an aid similar to that of a gecko toe, but for humans. DARPA has tested out the reversible adhesives with a 218-pound climber ascending and descending on glass, while also carrying a 50-pound load. DARPA says these aids can have biomedical, industrial, and consumer applications as well.
And the American corporation, British American corporation said, unfortunately, maybe you didn't understand. Let me restate it so you understand. I didn't ask you. I'm telling you. We're moving in here. It's called a corporate takeover. And so there was a hostile corporate takeover where the American corporation decided they wanted to go take over in Europe and they didn't want to be taken over. Well, it's too bad. Take over anyway. So they called it a hostile corporate takeover. We call it World War I. So the corporation called United States was able to overthrow the existing corporate order in Europe, but it cost a lot of money. They had to build a lot of tanks and jeeps and pay a lot of people. And the corporation, well, they were successful. They did what they wanted to do. But they went broke doing it. And so when they went broke doing it, and then the bankers pulled their money out in 29, we had something called a stock market crash. Because the corporation spent so much money, they went broke. So the international banker says, well, if you're broke, what are you coming to me for? I'm not going to loan you money if you're broke. And so what do you have as collateral? You got any collateral that you can put up for me to loan you the money? And the corporation called United States, the British corporation called United States, said, yes, we have the stock. We'll give you stock in the company. You are the stock in the corporation. So they give your body to the banks in Switzerland. So your body now becomes stock for the corporation called United States because you are a money maker. Bankers came in and said, if we're going to loan you money, you guys have lost money, you guys have gone bankrupt, we're going to take care of the accounting. We're going to see where the money goes. We'll give you the money, but we're going to make it sure it goes where we want it to go. So they set up the Federal Reserve System and then the collection agency to make damn sure that you people pay us. We're going to set up to keep a record of how much you owe us in business each week. We're going to call it the Federal Reserve. And to make sure that your stock, all the chumps out there in America working, make sure the stock pays us. We're going to make sure they pay us. You don't just tell me you're going to pay. I'm going to make sure they're going to pay. So we will set up a collection agency. Our own personal collection agency is called the Internal Revenue. So the banks, the corporation called United States, loan money to the privately owned corporation called United States. And the United States Corporation gave your body, your birth certificate, to the banks as collateral for the loan. And that's why today Americans are nothing but slaves. Now, this is something I want you to understand. And you need to listen carefully because this is profoundly important. Most people have never heard this and don't even understand what I'm trying to say. So try and follow what I'm going to tell you. There are two kinds of law on the earth, as I've said. One is called civil law, which is the law of the land, and one is called maritime admiralty, which is called the law of water. Maritime admiralty is banking law. And the law on the maritime admiralty says that you, because you came out of your mother's water, are a maritime admiralty product. This is why the ship is sitting in its berth and is tied to the dock, and the captain has to give a certificate of manifest to the port authorities because money is changing hands. This is why when you were born, you have to have a birth certificate. It's got to be signed by the dock because that's where the ship is tied to, is the dock. So the dock signs your birth certificate. Why? Because you came down out of your mother's water. You came down her birth canal. You are a maritime admiralty product. And therefore, your birth certificate is signed by your mother. And where your mother signed on the birth certificate, get it, you will see it does not say parent or mother, it says informant. Your mother was informing the bank that she has just produced another product to be bought and sold. England, the British Crown, through international banking, owns your physical body. And that's the law. You can think it's funny all you want. So the bottom line is that you are a maritime admiralty product. And on the back of the Social Security card will be numbers in red. On the front will be in blue or black, but on the back will be in red. The numbers on the back of a Social Security card in red designate your body. It is the serial number of your stock. And this is why if you're wealthy, you are preferred stock. If you're poor, you are common stock. But you are a stock on the stock market. Your body is bought and sold through the use of your birth certificate. And if you could get your original birth certificate back, you would find that on the back of the birth certificate are all the banks around the world. All over the world, banks have used your birth certificate because you are a stock in a maritime admiralty banking scheme where you make money for banks. So consequently, the corporation and government and people who want to control you, they create a second you, and that second you that they control, that they created, is all capital letters. Check it out. Anytime you get a bill, get a lawsuit, you get a fine, a ticket, somebody sends you a bill from the Department of Water and Power, check it out on your driver's license, on your Social Security card, on your insurance cards. Anything having to do with business, your name will always be in all capital letters because only all capital letters can be dealt with by banks and government. Anytime you have a name upper or lowercase, that applies to you. I got no control over you. You sign a contract in which your name is in all capital letters, now I can take you to court. Now I can take you. As a matter of fact, the judge sits on the bench. He rules from the bench. The word bench in Latin is a bank. Look it up in a Latin dictionary. So the judge rules from the bench. Right, because he's ruling for the bank. Why? Because somebody's going to pay. It's just a game here. The Queen of England wants a cut of the American blood. She wants a piece. Because somebody's going to pay, and the money's going to go where? Into a bank. That's right. The judge rules for the bank. So consequently, if you are working in California making money, you are then referred to as a franchisee. You're a franchisee of a foreign corporation. 1849 Constitution of California says, no California citizen will ever pay taxes in California state. Ever. There will never be a state tax in California. Ever. That's the Constitution of California. But if you say that you're a United States citizen, you're saying you work for a privately owned corporation called United States. Therefore, you are a franchisee of a foreign corporation. Therefore, you must pay the California Franchise Tax Board, not California State Tax Board. There is no state tax in California. You pay the California Franchise Tax Board because you're a franchisee of a foreign corporation on the maritime banking law, international law. You work for the Queen of England. Your butt is owned by the Queen of England in a corporation called United States, while a man called Bush is the president of the British corporation. You need to wake up and find out how this stuff really works. Because once you understand that you don't need to submit yourself as an American to a British commercial venture called courts. You're an American. You don't need to go to court. You only go to court because you agreed to go to court. When they send you a subpoena to court or a summons to court, or they've sent you something, you look at it and say, hey, Jack, that's not me. That's in all capital letters. All capital letters is a corporation. It's a corpse. It's dead. Do I look like I'm dead to you? No, I'm an American, Jack. I ain't dead. And besides, I'll go to an American system for justice. I don't need no British Grand Lodge Masonic system called courts. This British Grand Lodge Freemasonic system called Inns of Court comes out of England. And it has manipulated, exploited, and lied to the people. And everybody in America thinks they got to go to court. Oh, the judge is, they've sent me something that I've got to go to court. I don't go to anybody's court. I'm an American. I don't need to go to court. That's the difference between being a free man and a slave.
That's the difference between being a free man and a slave.
Why do you still do it? Why are you still out here?
Well, it goes back to the destiny thing. I made a bargain with it, long time ago, and I'm holding up my end.
What was your bargain?
To get where I am now.
Should I ask who you made the bargain with?
with the chief commander.
On this earth?
And this earth, and then in a world we can't see.
And this earth, and then in a world we can't see.
My mama was sacrificed. You understand? Michael Jordan, what about him? His daddy, right? Bill Cosby, his son, right? Dr. Dre, his son. Around Hollywood, a lot of people come up missing. Feels like it might be a lot of that in order to control, traumatize. They want to monetize and traumatize. And God loved me. That's more important than anything in life. That's the thing. You know what I'm saying? And this truth is going to be heard. I'm going to take all the producers, the musicians, the designers, move us all out to Hollywood, move us all out to New York, chasing gold statues. Literally signing a contract and selling our souls.
There's
there's a voice, and it's a little quiet voice that goes, jump. It's the same voice. And the same voice goes, just one. There's a voice that goes, jump. And the idea of just one. For someone who has no tolerance for it, that's not a possibility.
To talk about it as caused by something, but
Not caused by anything, it's just there. It's just, it's latent. Waits. It lays in wait, and for the time when you think, that's fine now, I'm okay. And then, beep. And then the next thing you know, it's not okay.
And you really lost him the same day you hit
Swear to God, the same time. It was Baby on Baby. It went like number one.
Okay.
It went like number one on Apple Music, iTunes. It was like number 7 or something like that. And then I had got the phone call. My brother woke me up. He like, hey, call your little brother. My little brother, my dad. So I call your little brother. He DM me. He woke me up. I'm like, DMs you, what's up? Pick up the phone. I call him. I'm halfway asleep. He yelled, bro, he dead. He died. I'm like, what? I set up in my bed. I'm like, what? Same time, Carter, he blowing my phone up. Blowing me up while I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I'm thinking he calling to deliver the same news. I click over, what's up, bro? We number one. Number one, you did it. You did it. I'm like, damn.
I click over, what's up, bro? We number one. Number one, you did it. You did it. I'm like, damn.
It's a project first dreamed up by the military to get information from the battlefield.
They call it smart dust, and the new technology may soon make it possible to keep track of anything, anywhere, including you.
The nanoparticles are designed to go under the radar of the immune system. And so they are undetected in the body.
We have computing everywhere. We have connectivity everywhere. We have infrastructure that can compute those with new capabilities like AI.
If you have enough data and you have enough computing power, you can understand people better than they understand themselves, and then you can manipulate them in ways which were previously impossible.
Transhumanism is a growing movement that aims to use technology to modify our bodies, sometimes in radical ways to make them stronger, faster, and...
Okay, all day today, it's about 1 in the afternoon. Skies have been crystal clear, okay? Crystal clear. Planes flying across the sky all day long. But now, all of a sudden, what you're about to witness, okay? They all are starting to come now. Crisscross applesauce, all up in here. You're going to see what's going to happen to these crystal clear blue skies, okay? Remember, planes have been flying all day. And then all of a sudden, these guys. Wait, that's kind of weird. It's getting a little hazy 2 hours later. It's like, why wasn't it hazy earlier with all the planes flying, and now it's hazy? Because the temperature hasn't changed. There it is, at the end of the day. Southern Union. Oh. Breathe it in.
In 2006, a leaked document revealed that in a nondescript building in San Francisco, behind this random yellow door labeled 641A, the NSA had set up this harmless-looking box that tapped into the fiber optic cables that traversed the Pacific Ocean into Asia. The phone company AT&T had agreed to let them siphon off the traffic that was moving through their cables.
This is the greatest hemorrhaging of legitimate American secrets in the history of the Republic.
And that is what we have been looking through. I mean, there's a lot more documents, but we sifted through and found the documents that show us that it wasn't just one cable in San Francisco being tapped. Off Yahoo, Google, Facebook. Paltalk? What the hell is Paltalk? Who knows, but the NSA was tapping their cables.
Next one's going to be a little bit weird. You may even pause the video to want to Google this to say, this can't be right. In 1951, the U.S. enacted the Invention Secrecy Act. What is that? Allows the government to legally classify and keep certain inventions secret if deemed a threat to national economy or security. What could be a threat to national economy? If you're able to figure something out that's 220 miles per gallon, you think it affects the oil industry a little bit? Maybe. Inventions under a secrecy order cannot be discussed, exported, or sold outside of military channels. Violations of secrecy order can result in imprisonment for the inventor. Over 6,000 patents today are kept by the U.S. government in secret. They didn't allow the people to go out there and sell it. I wonder what those 6,000 patents are. A lot of people want to be like, when you become a president, I want to go to Area 51.
Good idea of sort of roughly what it's doing.
But as soon as it gets really complicated, we don't actually know what's going on any more than we know what's going on in your brain.
What do you mean we don't know exactly how it works? It was designed by people.
No, it wasn't. What we did was we designed the learning algorithm. That's a bit like designing the principle of evolution. But when this learning algorithm then interacts with data, it produces complicated neural networks that are good at doing things, but we don't really understand exactly how they do those things.
Remember when Elon said AI is like summoning the demon?
I mean, with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon. You know those stories where there's a guy with the pentagram and the holy water, and he's like, yeah, he's sure he can control the demon. Doesn't work out.
Now that's creepy in itself because the guy already knows so much about the AI and the future of AI. But then I started to think about how fast AI has progressed. I mean, it really started with ChatGPT. It would help us think and do tasks. But now it's starting to replace our partners.
Well, it's for a software engineering role, but I just need to know, do I look presentable, professional?
You definitely have the I've been coding all night.
Now it's starting to replace, I just posted a video on in prisons where they implement the crime of the criminal into their head as punishment. It seems like AI can replace anything. Now, what if AI's final destination is to replace God or literally summon demons like Elon said? Now, let's not get that crazy, but think about it. If AI can replace anything, and if technology can do everything, why would we need anything else? I'm confident this will never happen because God runs this world, and if He is for us, then who can be against us? And technology can't even come close to the things He can do.
God runs this world, and if He is for us, then who can be against us? And technology can't even come close to the things He can do.